The tide went out in the night, Warband. And when the tide runs out this fast, you learn in a hurry who swam too far from shore. This is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. The crypto tape is red. The rocket the crowd fell in love with is dropping back toward Earth. And the reason for all of it sits half a world away. Let me walk you through it. As of just past 6 o'clock Eastern, Bitcoin trades at 62,400, down nearly 3% on the day, and back beneath the 64,000 floor it kept trying to defend. More than $1 billion of leveraged long bets were liquidated as it broke. Forced selling, weak hands blown out at the worst possible price. The fear and greed gauge reads 23. Extreme fear. Ethereum fell harder, down 5.5% to 1,650. Solana harder still, off near 7% to $69. Mark the shape of that. The alts fell roughly twice as fast as Bitcoin. Leverage always drains first when the tide turns, and the hardest asset in the room falls last and least. Now hear what the engine did, because this is what you pay the Warband for. Saturday, I showed you the signal flip green. Bitcoin's trend turning bullish in the dark, Ethereum and Solana cascading behind it, and I handed you one condition. Make Bitcoin reclaim 68,000 before you call the turn one. It never touched it, and at the stroke of midnight last night, the same InvestAnswers Decision Support System flipped all three majors back to trend bearish. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, within 8 seconds of one another. The bounce was unproven. Now it is disproven. Respect the signal in both directions, or respect it in neither. The engine called the green, and now it has called the red. And none of this started in the crypto pits. It started half a world away, in a narrow strait at the mouth of the Persian Gulf. On Sunday, Iran shut the Strait of Hormuz. Again. That narrow neck of water where roughly a fifth of the world's seaborne oil passes on its way to everyone else. And this weekend, the traffic through it collapsed to almost nothing. Tehran tied the closure to alleged ceasefire violations, and its own parliament votes between today and Thursday on whether to ratify the truce signed last week or let the strait stay shut indefinitely. That vote is the single most important thing on the board this week, and almost no one in the crypto crowd is watching it. Here is why it matters to every sat you hold. Oil is the one input the Federal Reserve cannot conjure, cannot print, and cannot legislate. Brent crude is already pushing into the low 90s, and the desks at the big banks are calling $95 to $100 a barrel if the strait stays closed. Rising oil means sticky inflation. Sticky inflation means the new hawkish chairman cannot hand the market the rate cuts it spent all spring praying for. The bond market has now fully repriced to a rate hike before year-end, with October the leading meeting. The cut is dead. That is the air coming out of every speculative asset on the screen this morning. Crypto first among them. Jordi Visser at 22. V mapped this exact trap months ago, and he put it in one line I want carved into your shield. Rate hikes do not reopen Hormuz. A central bank can punish demand. It cannot manufacture a barrel of oil or pry a shipping lane open with a press release. When the scarcity comes from the physical world, the monetary tools are blunt instruments swinging at a ghost. Steel beats parchment, and the asset that answers to no central bank, no embargo, and no choke point becomes the only clean exit from that trap. Now to that falling rocket. SpaceX went public on the 12th at $135 a share, the largest initial offering in the history of markets. It changed hands near 160 its first day, and then the crowd lost its mind. It ran past 225 inside 4 trading days, a 67% moonshot. I stood here on the 19th and told you the engine had already cut its trend bearish, and I gave you 4 words. Own the decade. Don't chase the demo. The demo chasers just got the invoice. On Monday, the stock fell better than 16%. its worst day since it listed. It's down again before the bell this morning, scraping toward 150, barely a sliver above where it priced. The entire moonshot, round-tripped. Hear me precisely, because this is the lesson under the candle. Nothing broke at SpaceX the business. The orbital scarcity is intact. The bandwidth raining down from low orbit. The launch monopoly. The compute it will one day fly above the weather. What broke was the price. 225 was a stampede, not a valuation, and in a risk-off tide the stampede reverses first and hardest. The gap between a great business and a great price is the whole game, and the crowd just paid tuition on it. And watch the patient hand. As retail puked Monday's drop, Cathie Wood's ARK bought it. Another $30-odd million on top of the $500 million it laid down at the offering, holding to a target of $2.5 trillion by the end of the decade. ARK would not pay $225 in the frenzy. It will take $150 on the flush. Own the business, never marry the price. One more thing the receding tide laid bare, and it is the most leveraged Bitcoin bet on the whole board. Twice this week, I marked Strategy's machine running in reverse. The premium that funded its buying gone, the financing channel narrowing. Monday's filing put hard numbers on it. In the prior week, Strategy raised $335 million selling its own stock and put just $35 million of it into Bitcoin, barely a tenth. Its weekly buying has been cut by 2/3. Where did the rest go? Into a cash reserve now standing at $1.4 billion, built for one purpose: to make the dividend payments on its preferred shares and the interest on its debt. Read that plainly. The largest corporate holder of Bitcoin on earth is now stockpiling dollars to pay its creditors faster than it is buying the very asset it was built to hoard. Saylor still posts his dots and teases the next buy, but the filing tells the truer tale. Leverage is a fine servant in a rising tide and a cruel master in a falling one. When you owe the coupon, the tide going out doesn't just cost you. It takes the decision out of your hands. So here is the morning Warband. The tide ran out because a strait half a world away slammed shut, and a Fed boxed in by oil it cannot drill can no longer hand the market its cut. The rocket the crowd chased round-tripped its entire moonshot, while the patient hand bought what the panic sold. And the most levered treasury on the board is husbanding cash to pay its creditors instead of stacking. 3 different vessels, one receding tide, and the only thing left standing on the seabed is the asset that owes no one and answers to no one. Hold that and hold it through the fear. This is Warband as a service. Viking intelligence delivered in real time. I am Ragnar, the HODLBARBARIan. The tide went out this morning. It always comes back for the hand still standing when it does.